We are up to Daf Kuf Nun Vav. And we are middle of learning that a Yosem cannot sell his father's property unless he is 18 or 20 years old. So now the Gemara brings everything to a conclusion. And Daf Kuf Nun Vav Amad Aleph, about 8 lines at the top of the page. Okay, now we're going to include all of these halachas and add a few more. Amar Nachman, Amar Shmuel. Nachman says name is Shmuel. Boitin, Likidushin. When it comes to someone getting married, it's not sufficient to be 13 years old. It has to also have Shtei Cyrus. She has to be Bas Mitzvah if she's being married off by a sister or by herself. And you have to have puberty. So you have to have two things. Puberty, even though we have a chazakah that most people when they reach of age, they reach puberty, but when it comes to matters of the Torah, we need to investigate. And legation, and the Gemara will analyze this for divorce. Also, we have to make sure that this person is bar mitzvah. The obvious question is, if he was bar mitzvah to get married, obviously he's bar mitzvah when later on he decides to divorce her. Why check her again? We'll discuss that soon. Little chalitza is what do you call it? You also have to be of age. Ulmi Union, a girl who was married off by his members of his family, then and up to the age of 12. When she's 12 years old, she can walk out. You don't need a divorce, like nothing ever happened, and has to be before she reaches Bas Mitzvah. Then we go back to what our Gemara learned before. In order to sell the assets of his father, ben esim needs to be 20 years old. Has to be 20 years old. Now we already discussed. I'll come back in a minute. Now the Gemara goes through now all of these didn't. First of all, the key on the badakna likidushin legadushin lama. If you checked out this person for kiddushin is bar mitzvah, let's say, why bother checking by divorce again? Says the Gemara. All the Rishonim ask, why bechlal bother checking kiddushin? Manushach. If the kid was not bar mitzvah by kiddushin, that means it was never a marriage. So who cares? The get doesn't mean anything. And if the kid was bar mitzvah, then the get is meaningful. So why the Gemara's question shouldn't only be now that we've investigated by kedushin, why bother investigation? The question should be why b'chlal investigate by kedushin? Because who cares? Manushach. If it's under bar mitzvah, then no marriage happened in the first place. And if it's over bar mitzvah, then no, if it's under bar mitzvah and the get is also under bar mitzvah, who cares? There's no marriage. And if it's over bar mitzvah kedushin, then for sure the get is over bar mitzvah. So why bother at all? So someone should answer, we don't want to give a get stamp. Because when you give a get stamp, people think it's a real get. So, for example, she won't now marry Krainim, thinking that she's divorced. Or he won't marry the sister of his wife. So what happened? He gave her Kedushin. We'll think that they're not married. But Emerson, there was never a Kedushin before. He was never married to the sister. And therefore, the second Kedushin should be, we don't want to have Gittin unless it's real. There is a Mishnah Lamelech, famous opinion of Mishnah Lamelech, and everyone uses this Gemara as a ra'ayin, but actually I think it's a question. The Mishnah Lamelech holds that if a kid gave kedushin, we say ain't kedushin, a couple cannot give kedushin, but when he becomes bar mitzvah, if he's still living with that woman, then lemafreya the kedushin is a good kedushin, big kedushin Mishnah Lamelech, and therefore the Gemara and they use this Gemara as a raya. You see that we talk about. The Gemara doesn't ask why check by kedushin. Yeah, then you still need a get because who cares if it was a cut or not? You need to get properly. Therefore, to check by kedushin. But the fact that none of the Rishonim say that tells you that none of the Rishonim hold to that. They all hold that if kedushin was under bar mitzvah, then nothing happened. Anyway. So why you have to check for get if you're at kedushin? So there is a heichetim, so there is a case where you're under bar mitzvah when you got married, and it's a valid wedding, a valid marriage, and therefore you have to check by the gittin if it's a valid get. How is that possible? By yibum. Yibum you have to be bar mitzvah, but we learned that if you're 9 years old, a cut 9 years old shaykh for bia, if he lives his sister-in-law, they're married. No. Once he's married. No, not on the bar mitzvah. You have to wait till bar mitzvah. There, the machlekes are shayim, Tais and others, whether mahatoida, this 9-year-old was kind of his sister-in-law, or is it only midrabanan? But either way, it's free to get. That's my answer. The 9-year-old said, well, had relations with his sister, law Kana is Kana. The ain't nice and get. Actually, you got to he can, but still he cannot give a get. He's by mitzvah. So that's that. L'chalitza. Why do you have to tell me about chalitza to check whether the adult? Of course, everything has to be an adult. La Fuke to negate the opinion of Rabbi Yasi. Rabbi Yasi says if you look in the Torah, it says ish. It says in the Torah about chalitza that the person who gives the chalitza has to be a man. Doesn't tell us anything about the woman. Ish Isha. He says that by Isha Bank Daila Bank Tana. Rabbi Yasi holds when it comes to the woman, I don't care what age she is, she can receive chalitza. Kamash Malon that Makshin and Isha. Everyone has to be of age and puberty. The loike Rabbi Yasi, not like Rabbi Yasi. The next thing we say Lemiyunin. What? As long as she did not bring the signs of puberty, she can still be Mamai and walk out in the marriage. La Fuke Med Rabbi Yehuda. The Amad, he says Ad Sheyar B'Shachar. He says that how you have to have two cyrus for puberty, 2 hairs, but the hairs have to be so long that they can fold back on the skin and make the skin appear dark. Even though there's only 2 hairs, and some people have a guess of Sarah Keneged Lavan because your Lavan is a white skin, and the black hairs look. No, it has to be a long time. Of course, if you started the hairs, they still not pas mitzvah yet. Kamash Malon, the like it Rabbi Yehuda. As soon as you have 2 shayros, you're ready to consider an adult. Machlekes Rishonim in Rabbi Yehuda doesn't mean that you don't become adult at all until you have shtei siders that are covering most of it, or you're starting your adulthood when the shtei siders start forming, but it doesn't complete until it covers on shachar. So a machmer on both ends. V'limka b'nichsei aviv, in order to sell the assets of your father, talking about a yasam, and talking about karka, ad shehei ben esen, 20-year-old. Yes, we looked at opinion 18, 20. We had a big machlek in the shame, which we discussed yesterday, because we have a contradiction in the Gemara. In the Gemara, it says you have to be 20 years old. It says open-ended statement. But then the Gemara said, but if you're smart, if the kid is sharp, astute, street smart, from bar mitzvah or bas mitzvah. In fact, the story in the Gemara is about a girl. How do you reconcile the two? So big machlek is a shame. And because over here the Gemara makes no qualifications, it seems from here that benichsei aviv, when it comes to the father's property, no matter how smart you are, you can't. I watched the Gemara before. That's if not your father's property. That is if you bought it yourself. If you bought it yourself, then you appreciate the value of money. That's when we say that if you're smart, you can sell it. If you're not so smart, you got to wait till 20 years old. Other people, in fact, other Rishonim, they break it down to 3 levels. They break it down when it comes to your father's estate, you can never sell till you're 20 years old, no matter how smart you are. Sorry? Or 18, 20 or 18, yeah. But the Gemara concludes on 20, so I'm just going, oh, yeah. If a patrufus bought it, not yourself, then it depends if you're smart or not smart. If you bought it yourself, even if you're not smart, if you're smart enough to buy, you're smart enough to sell. 3 levels. Then we had another machlekes showing him when we say nichse other, it means literally only your father. What about your mother's assets or your uncle? So we had many Rishonim who say that dafka your father because it's something that happens all the time and you did nothing for it. When it comes to your mother's assets, which is highly irregular, generally the woman doesn't have assets unless she's the only girl. She yashim her. So because it's not so common, the Chachamim never made this takana over there, but you have to be 20 years old. Anyway, then they want to continue. 13 years old or 20 years old means 20 in a day, not the 20th year. We mentioned yesterday that the Rambam says Ben Shmoyne Osel Chuba means 17. He says 17 years old because he means 18th year. And Ishikayach yesterday for finding that Sikha of the Rebbe are 20 years old. But I remember it's another year also Tafshin Yutes or Tafshin Yuches Simchas Torah. For some reason or other. Maybe I'm wrong. The Hilchasa and the halach is like Gidul Bar Menashe. See, this is the problem. Gidul Bar Menashe, the one who says if you're smart, it could be 13 or 12, depending boy or girl. How does that fit in? You just said a minute ago 20. So that's where all the Rishonim try to work it out. The Hilchasa and the Hilchasa and the halacha is the machlek Rishonim gufa. When you're 20 years old, you have to be smart then. What happens? You know for sure you're not so smart. What happens then? And we also learned yesterday that the Rava said that if you tell somebody something and he can repeat it, he's already smart. Which the Rishonim have a hard time understanding. You tell somebody one thing and he's a parrot, makes him smart already. What's even pshat? What exactly does it mean? So some say, yeah, take it literally. If you can, we actually have about dayanim. We say, gomer v'loy savir or savir v'loy gomer. We say dayanim, you have to have one mumche, one expert. We'll learn Sanhedrin. But the other ones, as long as savir, even though loy gomer never learned, but if you explain to them the sugya, they'll understand, have a straight head, they can be dayanim. But the Rava had the guy was told one thing, a Megillah cost $1 and this cost $1, and he repeated that, and then suddenly he became a brilliant guy. So therefore, other trials have a whole different version of what actually happened in that story. The last thing, and the halacha is like Mazutra, who said, another hard one, we looked at different opinions, that under 20 years old, he can give testimony about metaltalin, but cannot give testimony about property because he can't sell it. He doesn't really understand. Another trying to say, what does understanding have to do with ages? You're telling a story. So they want to learn, talking about assessing property. If he wants to assess property, where you can't because you don't appreciate value. And the halacha is like a meima that says if a 13-year-old gives away a gift, even though he's not a genius, he can give a gift because, and we explained in yesterday's Gemara, because in order for him to receive gifts, he probably had to earn it. And the Chachamim wanted to make his life easier, so they said he can give gifts as well. And every Rav Nachman just said the name of Shmuel. We just learned Kedushin and all those things you have to check out. The halacha is like him. Next, after learning everything we learned till now, it's just amazing. We're wrapping up the sugya now, Shchimera. And we learned that Shchimera, if he gives away all of his assets. So whatever he says, Kiksuvin and Masurin means there's like written, and we said the reason is we don't want to exacerbate a situation, because if he feels that he's helpless, it'll kill him. Then we learned that Matana B'mikzah, if a Shchimera said only gave partial, then it's a Matnas Bari. He cannot, if he even recovers, he cannot take it back. But then we learned if it's Mitzabe Machaz Misa, if he throws in there at all, I'm dying, and therefore, even then, if it's a partial contribution, and even though you make a kinyan, when he gets better, everything falls apart. Now suddenly we learn there's an opinion, doesn't believe in the whole idea of Shchimera. You would think it should be the first Mishnah in this whole subject. It's like in Gittin. You learn the Homer after Gittin, the last Mishnah tells you when you give a get. That should have been the first Mishnah. And before you tell us what a get is, tell us how to do it. Tell us when anyway. Didn't write it down. No get, no kinyan. He just said, this is my distribution. This is what I want to do. Comes along at Abba Lazar. Echad body. The echad l'sukin. Whether you're healthy, whether you're dying. Nechasim sheyesh lehen achrayis. If it's property, there's only one way of being kind of. Niknin bekezer shtar chazak. Usha ein lehen achrayis. And if it's metaltlin, the only way is ein niknin ela meshicha. The only way is meshicha. No such thing as he said it, this is my distribution, and it works. And the Rashbam takes a step further. Even mitzvah is machlekes shaynim if you go even this far. Even mitzvah machmitzvah. In other words, a shchimera doesn't say that I'm dying. Shchimera just he is dying, and he said this is my distribution, giving away all the assets. So Rabbi doesn't believe in this thing. Because he gave it all away, he doesn't believe it'll cover. Too bad. If there's no kinyan, nothing happens. But what about mitzvah machmitzvah? He gave us introduction. I'm dying. So the Rashbam learned that even if he says that, if you don't make a kinyan, nothing happens. Nothing happened. Yeah. Okay. And if you did make a kinyan, nothing unravels. Even though the Shchimena gave it all away, he made a kinyan. That's the only way to do it. So this is Abba Lazar. Because the next mission will be Abba Lazar. Be a third opinion. Then he continues. The Chacham said to him, what are you talking about? Mai said there was a story where he had his Gemara a few days ago. We had the mother of the children of Reichel, was the father, and this mother. She was dying. But she said, my brooch, I want to give to fasten her thing. There's a nice little ornamental thing. I want to give it to my daughter. And but Pashtas, this is there's two ways of learning. Either this is the only thing she owned. Or if it's not the only thing she owned, we learned about it before, but this is a mitzvah machmas mitzvah. She said, I'm dying. I want this to be for my daughter. It's in the family heirloom, and I want it to remain in our family to my daughter. And she added, it's worth 12 months. The Mesa, she died, it came with her, and they fulfilled her words. No kinyan, nothing. So in the Gemara before we said, even though it was only a matana b'mixes, it's mitzvah machmas mitzvah. She started off saying, I'm dying. But according to Rabbi Lazar, you don't believe in the whole thing. So why did they give it to the daughter? You said that without a kinyan, nothing happens. So Rabbi Lazar said, that's an exception. Why? They should be cursed. They should all have been buried and died in the lifetime. Because they were the shoyim. Now, you'll soon see what they did, to deserve to die before their mother is a pretty harsh penalty. No, but he's saying they deserve to be penalized. Even api halacha, There was no kinyan, and therefore the daughter shouldn't get it. But she was a good person. They were bad people, and therefore the Chacham were happy to take it away from him, not because of what she said, but because they didn't deserve to have it anyway. As we'll soon see. Time we learned, Omar lehen Rabeleze lechachamim. That should be Rabeleze, because this is Mishnah Rabeleze. Rabeleze is the next Mishnah. Ma'aseh b'Mereini Echad. There was a person from the city, Meron. Shahayi b'Yishvayim Yishvayim v'Hoyi lemetalton. Had a lot of metalton. Bikesh little matoni. He wanted to give it away as a gift. He wanted to give it as a way of a gift. He was a shchibana. Now remember, according to Rabeleze, just saying my last will and testament, nothing is going to happen, and he wanted to make sure it happens. So according to Rabeleze, what you have to do is make kinyanim. Amrullah ain't lem takana. As they said to him, there's no takana. They told this man who's dying. He has to make proper kinyanim. But there's nobody around. How is he going to make kinyanim? There's nobody there to pick it up and take it. He's in Yerushalayim, and they were Miran. So what he did was he did kinyan agav. So he was zeicha a piece of property for them, and then he said agav the property that you zeicha for these people be kind of also this for that person that. He went ahead, he bought a rock that you cannot plant or anything with it, and he bought it for nothing, and the Loka Beis Echad Samach Shleim B'Amar, he said that the north side of this rock. No, so when he's buying it on behalf of these beneficiaries of his last will and testament, and he divided the rock into different parts. The north side of this rock, I'm being koine for that person there, and agav that piece of rock, they can also be koine my car, and so on and so forth. Well, must find a leploni. He may sign 100 sheep, he may chavis 100 barrels with that. The south side of the rock should go to that one. The mason died. The kaim of chachamim as the varav, and the chachamim fulfilled his words. So the chayda we see from here that he had to make a kid. And so Rabbi Lezer said, you said that's enough for him to say. Then why in the world did he have to buy a rock and makna the rock together with 100 sheep and 100 barrels? All you have to do was say, I want 100 barrels and 100 wine and 100 sheep to go to Yankel and blah 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 blah, and that's it. Why do you have to go through this whole deal? There's a raya to me that there's no such thing as a shchibuna. They said to him, what are you talking about? Nesham raya. Maroini baraya. What's a shchibuna? He was a very healthy person. A healthy person can't just give away things. You have to do it for proper kinyanim. And Ayi died later. He died. People died. But he wasn't sick at the time when he made this distribution. Anyway, he told them, they deserve to be buried by their mother. Mother should outlive them. But my time it could lie. Why did he curse them such harsh words? What did they do wrong? They were Rishayim. What did they do? That they had in their vineyard, they also grew some kind of a plant. It's not normally kites with thorns, but this is not really thorns. It's some kind of a plant which makes it climb. So they were Mekayim climb. So because they planted climb, they were Rishayim. And because they were Rishayim, they deserved whatever they got. But Rabbi Loza is a consistent view. It's not. If you have this kind of, it's a kind of a plant that nobody really eats, only animals. Is that climb when you have that particular whatever it is growing together with vines? Is that climb? Rabbi Loza, I'm a kaddish. Yeah, it is climb because it's edible and so on and so forth. Chachamim say no. Only something that people generally keep because they want to use it. Not this. This is animal fodder. I understand when you grow charkum, saffron, other things like that. Okay, makes sense. What type of shad? You have this koitzim, they're like thorns, whatever it is. It's not really food for people. Why is that climb? We don't even treat it like a food. In a place called Arvaya, in an Arab place, in Mekayim, they feed that for the camels, so there's a need for it. Over here they don't. Also, because some places do, it gives it a chashivas enough. Exactly. So exactly. For that to the shame. Why the shame? Because the chachamim say it's all right. Rabbi Loza is not all right, and Ad Kedei Kach, he's upset that he cursed them. They should die.
They didn't say planted.
And Mekayim, even less. He's even less.
It's like a Shabbat.
So we had Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, when or about the animal going around the Shabbos and carrying something, he fasted all these days because he was against Chachamim. Listen to him. Here, okay, he's Mach Chacham Meko, but it's hard to understand. He's cursing them that they should drop dead, basically. Yeah, they should all drop dead because they're not following his lone opinion. And they didn't do anything wrong. They just didn't cut it down. Very difficult. This must be the Elazar of Shimon. Like, that sometimes they were very big makpidim and there's a big makpid. Like he's the one who used to arrest. Remember, he used to arrest any yid who misbehaved for the government. He's a very, very tough guy. That's why nobody wants to have anything to do with him. For 20 years he lied in the attic. Exactly. Hashem had to fix up what he did. Omar Rabbi Levi said, okay, Rabbi Levi says, no, I'm not sure why this Gemara is right here when the next mission is all about this, and then should have said in the next Gemara, but here it is. Omar Rabbi Levi, koinin kinyan meshchivra fil Shabbos. That since for a shchivra, a kinyan doesn't do anything, you're not allowed to be koin on Shabbos because you're scared you're going to write contracts. But shchivra, even if you made a kinyan, let's say suda, doesn't add because the words of a shchivra already does everything, and the shchivra on Shabbos can do whatever he wants because shema titzav daita, we don't want to cause any anguish, and all it is words saying. So you're allowed to, said a lady, you're allowed to make a kinyan from a shchivra even on Shabbos. Why? You made a kinyan because it means nothing. Rabbi Elazar says that a shchivra's words mean nothing. Is dafke the kinyan. So it's a problem according to Rabbi Elazar. But we are not worried about don't think that I'm following Rabbi Elazar. Really, we follow the Rabbanan. That's so why make a kinyan? You can ask for cat. According to Rabbi Elazar, the only way it's going to happen is through a kinyan, and the guy is dying. And if we don't allow the kinyan, that would have kinyan on Shabbat. But if you don't allow the kinyan, he'll get upset, and who knows what's going to happen. So I can understand. According to Rabbi Elazar, maybe we'll make and we allow you to make kinyan Shabbat. But according to Chacham, there's no need for the kinyan, so why make a kinyan? Why allow that? So he says, not because we follow the words of Rabbi Elazar and that you need a kinyan, that's why we're allowing a Shabbos. Even though halachically we don't need the kinyan, but if he feels, or even so, if he feels that he's not getting his way, it's going to cause anguish, and who knows what it's going to cause this person. So therefore, we allow you to make kinyan on Shabbos. And now the Gemara, the Mishnah is going to talk about that. Comes along, we have a Mishnah, we're going to have two ways of learning this Mishnah. Now this is Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar is the believing holiday of Shchivra. So you need a kinyan. Weekday Shabbos, you need always a kinyan. Rabbi Elazar says following. There's a difference between Shabbos and the weekday. Shabbos, on Shabbos, if a Shivra is dying and he says, look, you can't do kinyanim, so I'm going to divide my assets accordingly. Reuben this, Shimon this, Levi this. Then the Chachamim made a takana that divrei shchivra kiksuvin u'mesurim dami. Since you can't make kinyanim on Shabbos and we need to help him out, so we have this concept of shchivra. Because he cannot write, we're going to allow him. In the weekday, why should we make this takana, which is like outlandish, that you don't need to write down? Why not? Write it down. How long does it take? So during the week, when there's no need for this takana, we're going to say divrei shchivra as lav kiksuvin u'mesurim dami. Write it down. Well, you want Adam anyway. So amongst the Adam, probably have somebody who knows how to write. Rabbi Shua says, no. Rabbi Shua says, like we learned, B'Shabbos Amru. Definitely Shabbos, you're allowed to. We say kiksuvin mesurim. I mean, you're agreeing with that, right? You're saying on Shabbos we say kiksuvin mesurim. I mean, is kabachayim b'chad. Madach on Shabbos when you cannot make kinyanim. Yet we allow you to say, and we'll treat like a kinyan. So surely when you're allowed to make kinyanim, surely when you say it should be like a kinyan. Ain't bila ma'keves, but we have a rule that if you have it by the carbon mincha, you can have only have 60 esrainim, a measure, 60 measures that you can mix into one pot. But if it's 61, it's no good. Why? Because you cannot mix it. If you have 60 and 40 or 30 and you don't mix it, it's still good enough. In fact, you don't even have to mix it. But it has to be roll bila. As long cold over roll bila, ain't bila ma'keves by. If it's suitable, if you can mix it, it's good enough. So if on Shabbos when you cannot do kinyanim, yet you tell me that divrei shchivra is as if you made a kinyan. So surely in the week when you could make kinyanim, so surely we're going to be relaxed with the shchivra. We don't want to waste any time and make anything difficult. We're going to let him divrei shchivra. So we have two opinions there. Rabbi Lezer Chachamim, they both disagree with Rabbi Lazar, who says there's no such thing as a shchimera. They hold that there is a din of shchimera, but they say Rabbi Lezer says it's limited. In our version of the Mishnah, we'll see tomorrow is another version. Rabbi Lezer's version is only when you cannot make kinyanim do we allow you to do this, but not when you could. And the Chachamim say faket madach when you can't make kinyanim we treat it as if there's a kinyan. Surely when you could make kinyanim with your kids. Then following the same logic is the same machlekes is kiyotze by similar machlekes which is totally unrelated, but the principle is the same. Zachin lekatan, that you can be zoich on behalf of a cotton cannot be zoich for himself. So Rabbi Lezer says, since the cotton cannot acquire for himself, so therefore you can be zoich on his behalf. So zachin lekatan, we have to help him out. On Shabbos, we cannot make kinyanim, so we help the shchimah out. Talk, say words that's good enough. Same with a cotton cannot be zeicher himself, so we'll say that das acheres mak, that you can be zeicher on behalf of this child. But the ain't zeicher gadol. A gadol, why make a special takana? Of course, let the guy be zeicher himself. We shouldn't be zeicher for someone else. Ain't zeicher in the gadol. Doesn't believe in the whole concept we learn in Shas about that you can be zeicher for somebody. He says not for a gadol. Since you could make a kinyan for yourself, we're not going to make extra supplementary laws. And the Chachamim say, "Puvaket." Comes along Rabbi Yeshua. Yeshua is the Chachamim. Rabbi Yeshua says, "Lekot namru madr," someone who has no yad, is not able to be kind, and yet we allow someone else to be kind on behalf. Shekabel chayim b'legadol. Someone has a yad of their own. Surely someone else can be kind. So Taisus asks over here, why would there be an opinion that says that? Okay, we'll come to the minute. Masnis l'chayre. Mani, who's the author of our Mishnah, who learned this version of the argument of Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Yeshua? That's Rabbi Yehuda. Rameir has a Pumfaketa version. So let's see. The time of the Rai said, Rameir says, Rameir looks like this. Rabbi Lezer says, only b'chol dvar of kayam. Only when you can make a kinyan, can you also go ahead and say words. But on Shabbos, since you cannot make a kinyan, you cannot say words, which is exactly the opposite of what Rabbi Lezer said in our Mishnah. And now Mishnah Brother says only on Shabbos when you can't make a kinyan, we'll make a special device to help you out. But during the week you make a kinyan, you have an alternative. Why help you out? According to this version over here, Ameir's version, just opposite. When you cannot make a kinyan yourself, we're not going to allow you to say a few words. We can't make a kinyan. It's a chiluk saying or making kinyan. But on weekdays, since you couldn't make a kinyan, we'll make it easier that your words is good enough. And Rabbi Shua says. Rabbi Shua in this Bryce says exactly what on Mishnah, but coming from the opposite way. In our Mishnah, he says, I agree with you. Shabbos you're allowed to when you can't. Madra Shabbos when you can't. We allow you to say words. Surely the weekday when you can make kinyan, surely. Here, forget. Rabbi Shua says, I agree with you that the weekday allowed to when you can't make an alternative, and yet we still allow you to say Givarok Shabbos when you have no breda. Surely we have to help the guy out. So the Poyel Rabbi Shua in the Bryce, Rabbi Shua the Mishnah is the same. By similarly, another machlek similar, Zachin legadol. In this version, there ain't Zachin lekatan. According to Rabbi Lezer, he says when you have an alternative, we'll make a takana. When you have no alternative, we make no takana. So therefore, you hold a gadol, you can be Zachin because since the gadol has a yad, you can go ahead and be Zachin on his behalf. Of the Zachin lekatan, you cannot acquire things on behalf of a youngster, of a minor who doesn't have a yad. So Taisa wants to know the svara. We have a thing zachin la'adam shaloi b'fanav. So why is the cotton any different than that? So Taisa wants to prove from here. If you remember, we discussed the Ktsas, big machlek Rashi and Taisa and Gittin and other places. Solution whether zechi is mitam shlichus or is a kashuv or a whole like a whole different thing. So do we say that what's chiyah? Chiyah is just like a shliach. The only difference is shliach you appointed. Zechiyah is that even though you didn't appoint Anan Sadi, we are convinced that because this is your benefit, if you would have known, you definitely would have appointed him. And therefore he says, since a cotton has no shlichus, that's why a cotton has no, you can't be zech on behalf of the cotton. Zachin la'adam shloi b'fanav is somebody who has the idea of shlichus, but he didn't appoint me. But Anan Sadi, had he known, he would have made me a shliach. Zechiyah is just the next step of shlichus. And a cotton has no shlichus, has no zechiyah. So that's what he wants. So basically, if you follow that logic, the other opinions that say you could be zeicha on behalf of a cotton doesn't hold zechim tam shlichus. That was in the first version, which is now Mishnah example. Zachin the cotton, ein zachin the gadol, chum say zeicha both means they hold that zechim tam shlichus. And yet Taisa throughout Shas always says that zechim tam shlichus and so on. So here v'chayim gemara is a rai faket. because we don't pass on this. Anyway, Divrei Rabbi Lezer. Shua says, "Begadol amru madach," and the gadol where you're capable of just doing it yourself, and yet you can be zeiche kavachayim lekatan where you can't. You have to help them out. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Lezer says, "B'Shabbos dvar kayamin." Rabbi Yehuda is the one who says our version in the Mishnah. Right? What? Like our Mishnah. On Shabbos, dvar kayamin. On Shabbos, his words, we follow his words. If you have nobody, anyone help him out. Why help him out? Go do the right thing. And Rabbi Shua says, "B'Shabbos amru madach," when you cannot really do kinyanim, we allow kavachayim b'chayil. Very similar. Zachin lekotten. Big machlekes and poskim and everything else. If you did make a kinyan Shabbos, is the kinyan actually effective or not effective? By zachin lekotten ve'ein zachin legadol. Like our version of Mishnah. A cotton has no breda, you have to help him out. But you're not zachin legadol. And Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shua says the cotton madach, he has no hand, yet we help him out. Kavachayim legadol, who has sure we help him out. We have a concept called das acheres machne, which means if someone else gives it to him, so the kid is kind. It's like that person is zoich on his behalf. The big machlek whether it's mahatayra or is it midrabanan. In other words, if you learn that the main, we talked about it a number of times, the main part of the kinyan is the one who's transferring it, not the transferee, the mat, and the mat is a gadol. So therefore. Yeah, exactly. But if so, therefore the dasacher is matik because the gadol is doing everything. So hataida, the cotton in that case is kind because the other guy's doing everything. All we need is your placid, stand there and mikabel. But Shane Kane, if you learn that the main person is the kinyan, is a koine, then dasacher is matik is only midrabban. Okay, continue tomorrow mitzvah.